Here we go. Moreover, the black bourgeoisie have shown no interest in the liberation of Negroes, except as it affected their own status or acceptance by the white community, right? This new black bourgeoisie, they never cared about the liberation or the upliftment of the people. They only cared about themselves, right? This is not the same type of group that you get like with the Booker T. Washingtons and the W.E.B. Du Bois, who come from a different class of black folks, right? This is a new type of black bourgeoisie with a new agenda. Let's continue. When the opportunity has been presented, the black bourgeoisie has exploited the Negro masses as ruthlessly as have whites. And that's why I've said before, that is both the blacks and the whites who are eating off of the black community. It's both of them, right? Both of them are exploiting that community for their own gains. Understand, right? Some of those blacks who are in these prominent positions, they like the system and the condition just the way it is, right? Just like some of the whites in those prominent positions do too. Both of them like it just the way it is. And those blacks, they'll sell the other blacks out just as quickly as those African tribes sold those other African tribes out to the Europeans. Let's continue. As the intellectual leaders in the Negro community, they have never dared to think beyond a narrow, opportunistic philosophy that provided a rationalization for their own advantages. The single factor that has dominated the mental outlook of the black bourgeoisie has been its obsession with the struggle for status. The struggle for status has expressed itself mainly in the emphasis upon social life or society. The concern of the Negro for social life and society has been partly responsible for the failure of educated Negroes to make important contributions within the fields of science or art. And you see that here? There's a mentality and a mindset within that society that's keeping a lot of these youth who would and otherwise be really prominent in areas like science. It's holding them back, right? It's a mentality in there. Let's continue. Educated Negroes have been constantly subjected to the pressures of the black bourgeoisie to conform to its values. Because of this pressure, some gifted Negroes have abandoned altogether their artistic and scientific aspirations, while others have chosen to play the role of phony intellectuals and cater to the ignorance and vanities of the black bourgeoisie in order to secure social acceptance. Since middle-class Negroes have never been permitted to play a serious role in American life, social life has offered an area of competition in which the serious affairs of life were never involved. Middle-class Negroes who have made real contributions in science and art have had to escape from the influence of the social life of the black bourgeoisie. And today, what I'm telling you is that you have to escape completely from the black consciousness altogether, right? If you want to see any real change. Let's continue. In fact, the spirit of play or lack of serious effort has permeated every aspect of life of the Negro community. And that's why we had to make the great escape in the final phase of freedom, because this lack of serious effort has permeated every area in the life of the Negro community, right? And it has a stronger influence even today within that community. Let's continue. It has, therefore, tended to encourage immaturity and childishness on the part of middle-class Negroes whose lives are generally devoted to trivialities or unimportant things. And so this was a very important piece on the dominant black culture as reported by sociologist Dr. E. Franklin Frazier in this book here. And so accounts like this, they're very important because they don't sugarcoat things, which is what you need to hear, because it's better to have a bitter truth than a super sweet lie. But one thing that I want you to understand is that the point of highlighting these things and bringing these up is not to make people feel bad or to stomp people while they're down. It's to highlight these neglected areas that people have to look into so they can better understand how they inherited the mindset that they may have, right? And they can understand the problem if they see it as a problem and they desire to fix the problem, right? Because the problem and the solution, they're two sides to the same pole, right? And when the better you understand the problem, the better you understand the solution. And this is, like I said, important for people who have a desire to improve themselves. If someone doesn't see it as a problem and they don't have a desire to improve themselves, then none of this matters at all. It doesn't matter one bit. There's really no problem for you, right? Because you're just doing what you want to do anyways. But for the people who have a desire to improve and to change things, then it's important to understand the problem and to see it from a different perspective, right? So you can better prepare yourself for a solution. And so hopefully this has been able to help you out, and it has given you some light so that you can better find your way on the path. And so I want to thank you for watching all the way into the end. My name is Brooklyn St. Michael, and I'll see you in the free world.
Shout out to Brooklyn St. Michael for
para
his work.
contratos, venda.
Shout out to him for doing that work and making it easy to discuss, because that book, The Black Bourgeoisie, is a good read, and it brings up all of the stuff that we've been dealing with as he's already eloquently read. This is how important history is for us to document and control our own narrative. Because in the concept of what we believe Black fatigue is in modern times, everybody's experienced it at some point where they've been fatigued by whatever society is paying attention to and what they say they want. So in that, you heard stories about the peer pressure that each demographic within Black culture was experiencing with each other. And we have to turn, now we know that they've experienced the same peer pressure in the past. We have to turn peer pressure into leverage and call it peer power, because now we shouldn't be in competition with each other after what we've already been made aware of, right? So in that conversation, we have to also be able to distinguish that once we go from peer pressure to peer power and we have leverage, then we have to let go of our admiration for characteristics over character. And then we have to also in there go from thinking about how emotionally expressive we are to developing an actual emotional discipline, because we give away a lot of our energy. We give away a lot of our best effort to people that don't deserve it, you know. And then in there, we need to have some sexual discipline. We need to have, you know, more discernment overall, because what we do impacts everybody. Because in general, whatever happens in the US is going to impact every citizen. However, at different socioeconomic rungs, whether it be crime, economics, money, education, Black people are going to be impacted a lot differently because of our level of protection or economic leverage. That how much of it can we absorb? How much of it can we actually dodge and negotiate? And the things that we can't, how badly do they impact us? So I'm always paying attention to threat, because we are where we are right now. And then in the most significant part that I took away from it too is that, you know, there's always a rule from Accountable Masculinity that sticks out more than the others. And that is rule number 3: decentralized leadership requires knowing when to lead and when to follow. Must avoid misrepresenting fellow men. Although we're not perfect, we must have redeeming efforts. So that book was talking about a lot of the aristocratic Black people mentality, and also brings up the mulattoes and stuff too. And there's a segment in the group that was really focused on STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, that wanted to be completely separate from the rest of whatever they believed Black culture was at the time. There was a large group of second and third generation sharecroppers that got mixed in and lumped into the designation of being Black. But the mulatto and the educated community that practiced what it took to run society, they didn't want to be affiliated with that. And they actually had Dr. Frazier in the book. There was a part of the book where there was a mulatto lady that he was talking about, that when they went to college, she had no choice but to start acting like the undisciplined sharecroppers that had been intermingled into their culture, because it was pretty much it just became the peer pressure instead of the peer leverage at that time. So you're talking about Black people during a time where they weren't familiar with freedom, weren't familiar with resources, the little that they did have. And and versus a group of black people that did. Because if you let American history tell it, none of us were civilized at some point, and that's just not true. Because there was people that was there that wanted better. They saw what was coming, what they were going to be up against, and they were trying to do their best to insulate themselves from it from an intellectual level. But you can only go so far with the people that you travel with. So, and then that's kind of where we are right now. So I hope that you guys got something out of this the way that I did when I first saw it. And I watch it occasionally. And I was like, well, you know what, man, this might be something useful that somebody else can get some information out of. But you got to live life beyond the algorithm. You got to open up a book. You got to take in other people's experiences. And then most importantly, you got to take them seriously. Take them as seriously as you would like to be taken. Life beyond the algorithm. That's where everything happens, not just online. But when you do come online, hopefully your algorithm picks up my content and we can have another sit down and learn something together. And I greatly appreciate you attending. Hey, like, share, and subscribe. Make sure you share this in your timeline. Make sure that you tell somebody about accountable masculinity. Go get the book, and I'm out.